97.3. Come on. Let's go.
Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, the Traffic Avenue. Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, the Traffic Avenue.
Flex. Buckle up and join the best. Let Citi relieve your stress. So yes, let the music soothe your soul and keep you going just to refresh. Buckle and enjoy the ride from 2 to the half of the 5. Mondays to Fridays happening live. Where we gon' have a ball, you can text your guys. Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. Are you ready for the Traffic Avenue? Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. An applause for the Traffic Avenue.
Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, the Traffic Avenue. Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, Traffic Avenue, oh yeah. Welcome to the Traffic Avenue.
Detailed news, unparalleled coverage. Citi News on 97.3 FM.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Citi News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to Eyewitness News, coming to you live from our studios at number 11, Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra. My name is Salom Adunu. Tonight I'm here with
Ino Safo.
Coming up over the next 90 minutes, Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, has petitioned the World Bank to investigate a $48 million contract he claims was illegally and fraudulently awarded by Communications Minister to a company called the Ascent Digital Solutions Limited in a World Bank funded project. Also on Eyewitness News.
Bank of Ghana is not able to comply with its own law to do the very things that the other banks are doing. The bank has not filed and published its financial statements. Every 15 days, the Bank of Ghana is supposed to gazette.
The minority in Parliament has raised questions about the failure of the Bank of Ghana governor to file financial statements for the past 6 months. Tonight, we hear from the minority on their concerns. Still on Eyewitness News, and the international justice movement has responded to allegations of staging child trafficking made by the BBC Africa Eye against it in a recent documentary. The group says the documentary was full of inaccuracies. Stay with 97.3 Citi FM for more on this and other stories on Eyewitness News. And in business,
economists expresses concern about slight increases in Ghana's inflationary trends as inflation rises marginally to 42.5% for June. We get to hear from Professor Godfred Wakpin in the next 50 minutes.
There is more in business in the next 50 minutes. Eyewitness News is live across the country on all our affiliates and around the globe at citynewsroom.com. Your comments are welcome via WhatsApp line 0549 986 996. You can follow me on Twitter at Selom Adunu. The hashtag, as always, is Citi Newsroom. We take our first story from Eno.
The Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Okujeto-Ablakwa, has petitioned the World Bank to investigate a project being rolled out by the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization. According to the former Deputy Education Minister, the $48 million Ascend contract for the project did not go through the Public Procurement Authority.
And he's joined us on the line to help us appreciate really what his concerns are. Hello, good evening, sir. Welcome to Eyewitness News. This is a very serious claim you are making and also making a very bold, petition to the World Bank to launch investigations into this particular contract. Tell us the details of this, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening. Certainly, these are serious matters. We are talking about huge sums of money, no value for money for the Ghanaian people. And remember that all of these quantum of money are loans. None of them is a grant. So let me take you through a quick background. For some time now, I've been looking into the activities of a Nigerian cabal, which is led by a gentleman called Philip Olaya. The same guys behind Kelny GVG, the same guys behind Smart Infraco. Some time ago, you remember, I exposed a smart workplace deal, which at the time I exposed, they did not go through procurement approval. They later on went for procurement ratification. It doesn't take away the fact that it didn't go through due process. The work was not also properly executed. If you read the COVID-19 Auditor General's report, Smart Infraco have been indicted for not paying their taxes. They owe us about 1.75 million Ghana cedis in taxes. And that has been their modus operandi. Very, very low regard or none at all for our laws and due process. Then now, I have intercepted documents that another company they have created, hurriedly incorporated, called Ascend Digital Solutions Limited, purports to have won a $48 million contract under the Rural Telephony Project. And they have used that $48 million contract they say they have won to win another contract from the World Bank, which is valued at $49.5 million. Now, I'll come to the World Bank in a minute. Let's spend some time on this $48 million contract. Now, the background of this rural telephony project is that if you look at the HANZA, the official report of Parliament, on the 31st of March 2020, the House approved a commercial agreement. Now, the commercial agreement Parliament approved was very specific on the contractors to execute this $155 million rural telephony project. Two contractors, they are Huawei and then another Chinese company known as CNTIC. That is the approval that the House granted. And those who are conversant with the quality grain case and the CDB precedent, the CDB loan precedent, the rule is that when Parliament has approved a matter, that is what must be implemented. If you are going to carry out any variation, you have to come back to Parliament. If you do not, it is illegal. You have engaged in illegal conduct. And as was well established in the quality grain case, you have yourself to blame when the law catches up with you. So far as Parliament is concerned, we have been expecting all along that it is Huawei and CNTIC, which are the two companies executing the rural telephony project. Then I intercept these documents, which reveal that contrary to the parliamentary approval, apparently, this same Nigerian cabal has, as usual, found their way in there. Same tactics, same modus operandi, arm twisting. And they are the ones executing this project, $48 million. They claim is the award they have been given. Then what is also interesting and quite worrying is that there is really no trace at the PPA. I did raise a right to information request with the Public Procurement Authority, and the Public Procurement Authority responded that there is absolutely no record at all of they granting approval to Ascent Digital Solutions Limited to execute this $48 million contract. Now, what is revealing is that Ascent Digital is using this $48 million rural telephony project to give themselves track record, give themselves gravitas, competence, and that is what they have used to enter into a JV under shady circumstances. I'll come to that in a minute. To now win this $49.5 million contract. They told the World Bank that they have executed this $48 million rural telephony project, and based on that, they have the track record. And interestingly, whilst the minister is putting out tweets that she knows nothing about this Ascent Digital contract and daring me to put out the documents I have since put out incontrovertible, unimpeachable documents from the minister's own ministry, agencies under her ministry. I put out the GIFEC letter signed by the administrator, which is really an attestation certificate confirming that there is a proof of contract between GIFEC and Ascent. And this was contained in the tender documents submitted for the World Bank $49.5 million contract. So who is misleading the public? Who is telling lies? Is it the minister or is it the administrator of GIFEC? Now, you have a situation where GIFEC has now put out a statement saying that they do not recall. The most irresponsible and reckless statement I've ever seen from any public institution, where they say that the proof of contract document which I have put out, the administrator does not recall signing it. I mean, what does that mean? You're a corporate institution. You check your records. Either you don't have the document, you never signed it, or you did. You can't say that you don't recall. Meanwhile, you have made categorical statements to the World Bank, and based on that, you have just won this year a $49.5 million contract for this same Nigerian cabal, which has totally taken over the communication space. They're doing whatever they want. They think that the country belongs to them. And I wonder, which Ghanaian really can go to Nigeria and disregard our laws, just, right, rough, totally trample upon all the laws of Nigeria and get away with it. And that is what we are seeing here. And you see, internal memos I am reviewing, tons and tons of them. It's clear that this whole $49.5 million World Bank e-Transform project was secured under very dubious circumstances. First of all, when government took over Airtel Tigo, the president ought to have appointed a board. There is no board. The Minister of Communications has arrogated to herself a board, and some of you know, you cannot have a one-member board. It is not allowed under the laws of our country. The Companies Act is very clear, and nobody has appointed her as a board. And the sheer conflict of interest is mind-boggling, where this is the same person acting as a board, clearly an illegal board, who approves a JV, and I have all of those internal memos, tells Airtel Tigo to go work with Ascent to secure this deal from the World Bank, and is the same person approving the contract. I mean, the recklessness is incredible, absolutely unbelievable. So when you go through all of what has happened, and you see there is the tragic case of a chief finance officer at Airtel who was raising the alarm internally, telling them to stop what they are doing. That look, there's going to be the day of accountability, and people, are going to face the music. Guess what? The guy is removed from the procurement committee, and only last week he's dismissed. I mean, totally, taken out of the place because he is insisting that the right thing be done. So this is a clear case of insider dealing, clear case of misrepresentation, clear case of violation of our laws, right from the PPA to even our laws on parliamentary approvals and all of that. And that is why I have now petitioned the World Bank, Ms. Maria C. Malo, a senior investigator who is vice president in charge of integrity in Washington. I've also copied the Ghana World Bank office to activate their anti-corruption. You know that if you read page 10 of the e-Transform contract, they have stated clearly in the contract that if they discover that there has been any unethical conduct, any insider dealing, any conflict of interest, they will launch investigations, and the contract could be cancelled. So I'm activating that clause and requesting that the World Bank formally launch investigations into all of these naked, irregularities and infractions that have happened.
Very well. So just so we are clear, so there was an original $155 million contract approved by Parliament to be executed by Huawei and CNTIC. Is that correct? And
Yes.
so that contract, some way, somehow, you claim, found its way to ADSL, that is the Ascent Digital Solutions Limited, without any proper processes. Is that correct?
Yes, no parliamentary approval. And the minister did not come back to Parliament to vary the commercial agreement we have approved.
But do you have any explanation as to, why this $155 million project to be executed by Huawei and CNTIC, have had to be varied and given to ADSL, at the tune of, given to ADSL to execute at $48 million?
Absolutely no explanation at all. All we see are people saying they don't recall that they have signed documents. Others have decided to just launch personal attacks at me. That's all we see. They are not speaking to the issues, to the facts that we are presenting.
But the stage of this project, this $48 million project now being executed by ADSL. At what stage is this project? Are we done with executing it, or we are in the process of executing it, or we are yet to start?
Well, according to the documents I'm reviewing, if you look at the GIFEC proof of contract certificate, they say that Ascent is still executing it. They'll be executing it all year, that they started in February 2020, and they'll continue to execute it to the end of this year. Then I see also from the other documents I'm reviewing, the tender document, where Ascent is also claiming that so far they have delivered 506 sites and about 250 have been commissioned. And so one gets the impression from the documents and the review that Ascent is still executing it. So it's an active contract.
But if the World Bank comes in now, investigates and finds that there's a problem, then it means we lose out on this entirely. People may say that this may not be, I don't want to use the word patriotic, but if there is an issue, is there not a way we could deal with this, get it resolved, and still maintain the project or keep the project rather than getting to the World Bank? If they find something wrong, it means we lose everything entirely.
I am glad you asked this question, and let me humbly tell the Ghanaian people that it will be in our interest to lose this money than for this money to go to this Nigerian cabal who have a long track record of not even getting the job done. Look, these monies are loans, let's be clear. They are not grants. It's not free money. So you and I are going to pay. So whereas others are using all kinds of subterfuge, underhand dealings, insider dealings, conflict of interest, and they have this unholy alliance they are abusing to virtually grab all the juicy contracts in that space, we are going to pay for it. Whilst they smile all the way to the bank, you and I will have to pay for this with interest because they are loans. It's not free money. So isn't it better that we deny the cabal the money for them to take to Nigeria or their Grenada or the other Cayman Islands, the places that when I track, they like to go and play? Is it not better so that we save money and we don't have to really have to pay back? Look at the state of this economy. We've been shut out of the capital market. We are now in a distress situation. Should we be accumulating more debt when there's no value for money, no PPA approval, our laws are being trampled upon, and you have these, shadowy characters who don't even want to step forward and be accountable? If you look at the corporation documents that I have been analyzing, so he is, behind the scenes, beneficial owner, and then others are fronting. They create the impression that it's a Ghanaian entity, but really it's not. You have another Nigerian, Angela Onyoka, who is running day to day in the scheme of things. I mean, it's a typical, Ponzi operation, and we cannot allow this cabal to continue to milk us dry. And then we say that in the name of patriotism. I don't think that is patriotism. That is really selling your country cheap. That is allowing others to take you for granted, allowing other nationals to come and rape you. I mean, this is a country that stood up against imperialism, that stood up against slave raiders, against colonialists. We are not going to sit down and allow, a new form under a new guise, to manifest. We are not going to accept that.
I see. I mean, so this is an activity which, from your investigations, appear quite fraudulent and shady, being overseen by a minister of state. Fortunately, this is a minister of state, and fortunately, you are in parliament. Have you used the parliamentary process to get her to answer some of these critical questions, to the people of Ghana by way of accounting to the people what happened to the originally approved Huawei CNTIC contract? How come that was varied to this ADSL contract? To answer all these questions, have we done that yet?
So it's important for us to recognize that the parliamentary processes are quite wide and varying. So being a member of parliament, it gives you some leverage to also commandeer documents, to listen to whistleblowers, to gather evidence. We are doing that quite well. Then being a member of parliament does not also preclude you from activating other sources in terms of the accountability framework. So this petition to the World Bank, when a member of parliament sends out a petition of this nature, it's taken a bit more seriously, and it does help. Remember that it's just the first leg. There are many other actions that are going to follow, even with the conflict of interest aspect. Remember that the Supreme Court held in my case against Jacob Echebilamte that for conflict of interest, the arena is scratched. So that is also under consideration. Then we are going to at some point settle in for, other aspects that you may have to rely on, a probe by the House. Remember that this petition, the Right Honourable Speaker has been copied. The Minority Leader has also been copied. So they are being fully briefed. They are being apprised as the matters unfold. At a point, we will need to have a full-scale parliamentary inquiry into this matter and into the whole gamut of activities, the state capture and the hijack by this Nigerian cabal. We are coming for them. Their days are numbered. We will get them. But it's step by step. And I can assure you that we intend to fully exhaust all the parliamentary opportunities that, fortunately, the 1992 Constitution gives us.
Will these options also include getting the special prosecutor involved, since some of the allegations, include procurement breaches?
Yes, we are exploring that as well. We are exploring that. And the whistleblowers we are working with also have some other actions which they will also be carrying out. We have encouraged them. We have secured lawyers for them to pursue some of those aspects. So it's an unfolding matter, and there are going to be many more angles to this, I can assure you.
Very well. Thank you so much. The Honourable Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, Member of Parliament for North Tongue, he has petitioned the World Bank to look into some contractual arrangements between the Ministry of Communications and a firm, the ADSL, which seeks to provide some technology solutions for the Rural Telephony Project, which is a World Bank project. He's petitioning the World Bank because the money for the project was loaned to us by the World Bank. Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. A number of your messages have been coming through, and this one from the Negadafi in Yellow Crabble says, sometimes I feel sad as a citizen of this country because the same people that campaigned to protect the public purse now, under their own watch, the purse is nowhere to be found. I salute the Honourable Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. General Ortega says, Salom, it is clear that we are living in an era of constitutional dictatorship, which ruled by law rather than rule of law. The spirit of our constitution has been assassinated, rendering the letter impotent, you say. This one from Emil Akwensivi in Esojaman says, Salom, what is going on in this country? The government engages in a series of procurements without recourse or regard to law. This one from Prince Henry in Kofrodia says, good evening. To be sincere, corruption has become a social intervention program under the Baumia Nanado-led government. It says the next NDC government has a mammoth task to do by investigating all these alleged corrupt dealings under the government and prosecuting them if found guilty. Baba Chairman says, if there is something the Honourable Ablakwa knows about this contract, he should put it out for all to see. This is not the first time the NDC MPs have run to this institution. That is a Sino-Hydro contract in mind, and this is just much ado about nothing, you say. Alhaji Hamdan from Nyohini says, Honourable Ablakwa is the only MP who is working in the interest of Ghanaians. God bless him. Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. We'll take a short break. We'll return with more. Don't go away.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
This is a bank, First Atlantic Bank, a shining purple star to brighten up my day. First Atlantic Bank, refreshingly different services all day long. First Atlantic Bank, and it feels so cool. I know this is where I belong. Come on, everybody, this is a bank like no other. First Atlantic Bank. Follow me, let's go now. Let's go, let's bank. This is a bank like no other. Let's bank. This is a bank like no other. First Atlantic Bank.
First Atlantic Bank, refreshingly different.
You know, Papa, see that? And it's rickety car. Hey, Papa! Papa! Bobo, so how's your engine now? It is half man, half amazing. Thanks to Quartz and you can feel better energy.
Can't touch this.
Actually, guys, so Sancho's engine just died like that? Yes, so somebody managed to convince him that there is a better engine oil than Quartz, and he switched. Sancho Panza. Now, which engine oil can be better than Quartz? No other, my guy. Quartz with its age-resistant technology, it keeps your engine younger for longer. Now you know. Have you guys seen the new bottle design? It's superb. Quartz 9000 from Total Energies there improves fuel efficiency. Why do you think Mr. Mane and Logoso have taken the Quartz Nation movement World Cup like that? Sorry. Quartz. Keep your engine younger for longer.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
You're welcome back. Let's do some more stories. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, has described the boycott of sittings by the Minority Caucus as a breach of the standing orders of the House. The standing orders of Parliament stipulates that a member of Parliament shall vacate his or her seat after being absent for 15 sittings without permission by the Speaker and is unable to provide a reasonable explanation to the effect. Alban Bagbin said the Minority Caucus has not officially notified his office of their decision to shun the House for court sittings.
Yes, a member can choose not to attend the sittings of Parliament. A member, if he wants not to attend, but wants to be recorded as being absent because a permission has been granted, that permission has to be granted by the Speaker in writing. That is what guides attendance to the House. So you can choose to attend and you can choose not to attend. Now, when you choose not to attend, depending on your own action, you could be marked as absent, and that means without permission, or absent with permission. Now, the with permission means there's evidence, not oral, but in writing, that the Speaker has granted you that permission to be absent. And so the burden will now shift onto you as a group to show evidence that my good self has granted you permission to absent yourselves in writing, not verbal. We have two documents. One is the official report. The official report will definitely capture what the minority leader stated that day, that any time a colleague of yours is to attend court proceedings, you will solidarize with that colleague and you will be absent to participate with that colleague in the court proceedings. So the official report will capture that. Now, anytime you want to do so, if you want the permission in writing of the Speaker, you have to seek it. If you don't seek it and you don't have it, you will be recorded as absent. And that is without permission. I cannot come and use any verbal language or words to grant you permission. It must be in writing. And so I think the table office is right in saying that you've been absent without permission. That is what our rules say. Now, walkout means you have attended sitting. And during the course of the proceedings, something might have cropped up that you totally disagree with, you would have made contributions yourself, but you want to draw the attention of the public, particularly the Ghanaian citizens, of your revulsion as to what took place on the floor of the House. So you walk out and go and address the public. In mature democracies, after that, you come back to continue the proceedings of the day. If you feel strongly and you want to continue, you don't return to the floor. That is a walkout. A boycott, you just don't attend the sitting. You boycott the business. It doesn't necessarily mean the whole day. No. The House, for example, could suspend sitting, and you know that the next item is something that you disagree with, and you can decide to boycott that item on the order paper. And that will be a boycott. That is not a walkout because you don't attend. You don't come and sit when the matter is raised, then you walk out. That will be a walkout, not a boycott. In Ghana, we take representation in Parliament seriously. The attendance of parliamentary proceedings is taken seriously. Now we define it not to only include plenary sessions, but also to include committee meetings. And you know committee meetings is also part of plenary sessions, or other businesses of the House, which has compelled you to be even outside the presence of Parliament. But that should be on record.
You heard the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin.
All right, let's stay with Parliament now. The ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament, Isaac Adungo, has criticized the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, for failing to file the financial statements of the central bank for almost 6 months now. The MP says the law stipulates that the Bank of Ghana must publish its assets and liabilities in the Gazette every 15 days and file comprehensive statements at the end of each month. He argues that the bank has not adhered to this directive, thereby falling short of its obligations. He spoke today to the media in Parliament, and he joins us on the line to provide some more details to exactly what the situation is. Hello, good evening, sir. Welcome to Eyewitness News. Is this breach a recent phenomenon, or has it been something that has been happening for some time at the Bank of Ghana?
Well, you know that the Bank of Ghana is the chief compliance institution in terms of our financial sector and regulatory environment. And it holds entities that it regulates to account for failing to comply with its own regulations and the laws under which they operate. As a matter of fact, the Bank of Ghana has been very quick to revoke licenses of financial institutions. It has been very quick to impose fines on institutions that have failed to comply with these regulations and the requirements of the law. And so you expect such a compliance institution to live above board. But most importantly, because the Bank of Ghana is the foremost financial institution in our country, the banker of the bank of the government, and the reservoir of all our financial assets are in the hands of the Bank of Ghana. So it is not just about publishing your financial statements at the end of the year, but it is to give clarity to the people of the country as to how you have managed its resources. And there are very clear rules in the Bank of Ghana Act to ensure that. You do know that the banks are mandated to file their financial statements by the end of April, and some require them to even file what we call the long-form audit report, which is an elaborate, breakdown of almost every single item on the balance sheet of these banks, and should be certified by their auditors. The Bank of Ghana, we all know, and I accuse them they came to deny, that admitted to IMF, that they have been printing money at reckless abandon, the result of which has led to high inflation. As we speak today, the inflation is inching up from 41 to 42.1, and now it's 42.7, all because of the reckless printing and pumping of money into the economy. Interest rates have been over the roof. Depreciation of the cedi is very rampant. And these are the three key principal objectives that the Bank of Ghana should achieve within the monetary policy space. The financial sector is in turmoil. We are losing in excess of 20 billion by the banks as a result of DBEP that the Bank of Ghana watched on and allowed the banks to risk all their assets on the government of Ghana, even though the assets that they were buying were toxic. The rating agencies had warned that the government was not likely to be able to pay off those debts, but the Bank of Ghana still encouraged them. As we speak today, the Bank of Ghana is trying so hard to conceal 54 billion Ghana cedis of loss, $5.4 billion. That is a hole on their account that wipes out the entire monetary base and the entire reserve funds of our country, thereby making the Bank of Ghana incapable of funding any, and I mean any, monetary operation without printing money. In other words, they have run the Bank of Ghana into an empty shell that has lost everything that it owns. And they are struggling to cover this up. That is why 7 months down the line, they still have not published. And we are worried that we are not just dealing with a government that has been reckless, but we are dealing with a Bank of Ghana that has thrown $5.4 billion over the line. And we do not know how we are going to deal with that. But the worst of it is that they are failing to comply with their own law and to tell us the length of the snake that has just died. And I want to put it on record that the Bank of Ghana governor, Dr. Addison, must know that I'm watching him very closely. In my view, that is a jailbird, and he cannot hide from the mess and the recklessness that he has put the country in. I want him to come out as quickly as possible, publish the audited reports. I want to serve warning to the auditors that we will review all the standard auditing procedures and the standard auditing practices and international financial standards that are applicable for auditing the Bank of Ghana. And we will restate all the material facts that are hidden in this process. And they must be aware of the risk they carry for not expressing an appropriate opinion on the accounts of the Bank of Ghana. And that the board of directors must be mindful of their fiduciary responsibilities. The governor had the right and he had the authority to use the powers of parliament to insulate him from the negative influences of Ken Ofori-Atta and the executive. He chose to embrace them hand in hand, and he's messed himself up, messed the country up, and he will face the music.
I see. I mean, beyond raising the alarm or raising the issue as you did today in Parliament and as you're continuing to do, what can you do using the parliamentary process to compel him, if you like, to publish this financial statement as the law demands or requires?
As you are aware, crime has no expiry date. But also remember that I have been at the forefront of using my lawyers to drag him to file his reports that are required in Parliament, which he has stayed away from doing for 2 years. He has subsequently filed a number of reports, but when the Finance Committee invites him to meet us, he plays games with us. I want to tell him that we are in conversation with the Speaker to subpoena him to appear before the committee, and that we will not tolerate any such disobedience. The lack of leadership and the zero leadership at the Bank of Ghana cannot be tolerated any further, and he must account to the people's representatives, and would ensure that happens.
I see. So very well. I mean, we hope to see how the next few days unfold. But on another matter, the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is optimistic that the IMF or Ghana will meet the criteria for the release of the second tranche of the 3 million bailout we are seeking. Any observations so far about how Ghana is been faring in the IMF program?
The key variables that they need to meet, and we all know, were the conditions they were supposed to meet before the approval, which they didn't meet, which was to complete the debt restructuring and secure financing assurances. You remember when they came up to say that they had approved their project, the loan, I told you that we did not have financing assurances. Now, the minister has subsequently assured that he believes that by September, all that will be achieved. But what is he going to be celebrating with 600 million? That he has effectively signed off and sealed it off that Ghana is a country of 31 million bankrupt people, that the height of humiliation will become final in September, that as a matter of fact, as a country, we are not credit worthy, and that he would have signed out the fact that as a country, you and I cannot pay our debts. That is the height of humiliation, and he should stop giving us such updates.
I see, but is there nothing to be said for the fact that the exchange rate front is seeing some stability over the last few months?
How do you achieve a state? So if the best way to manage an economy is to refuse to pay your offshore obligations and use those money to fund the markets, is that how to manage an economy? If that is how to manage an economy, then we must as well put robots there and tell them not to pay our debt to external sources and use those dollars to fund the liquidity in the market. There is nothing to celebrate.
I see. Thank you so much, the Honorable Isaac Adongo, ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament, for speaking to us. Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. We'll take a short break, return with more. Don't go away.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Pay attention, all my Africans and African Americans in the diaspora, plus my white brothers and sisters. What if I told y'all the most trusted real estate company in Ghana, Sukasa, would like to take y'all on a nationwide tour, highlighting prime real estate and investment opportunities. Sukasa builds affordable luxury homes with 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. Come get the real value for your money, plus they have very convenient payment policies with 100% guaranteed cash back. This fully gated or grandson communities include malls, cinemas, and all social amenities, plus 24-hour security. All you gotta do is sign up for the tour for a measly couple $1,000 and come see what could be yours in real life. The African dream is alive. Contact Sukasa on 030-296-0865 or 055-369-7886 at Sukasa GH on all social media platforms. Email info@sukasa.com.gh. The Sukasa experience is also bringing on board a bunch of other property developers, which means patrons get a variety of options to buy from. This is powered by Government of Ghana, Beyond and Return Secretariat, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Works and Housing, Diaspora Affairs, the Office of the President, British High Commission, and the UK Chamber of Commerce. Sukasa, building on trust.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
You're welcome back. Now, Parliament has passed the Narcotics Control Commission Amendment Bill 2023. The bill empowers the Ministry of Interior to grant a license for the cultivation of cannabis for industrial and medicinal purposes. The Supreme Court struck out provisions in the Narcotic Control Commission Act that allowed for the cultivation of certain kinds of cannabis for medicinal and industrial purposes, arguing that it was legislated in violation of Article 106 of the 1992 Constitution. A review application filed by the Office of the Attorney General was, however, dismissed in a 5-4 decision. While debating on the amendment of the bill, members of Parliament stressed the need for the cultivation of certain kinds of cannabis. Away from that, the new trial judge presiding over the hearing of the Stephen Opuni case, Justice Abwaja Tando, has adjourned the case to July 25 for constitution of trial. This comes after the Court of Appeal overturned the decision of Justice Anoche Jima, who decided not to adopt proceedings under the first judge, Justice Honyenuga. Justice Anoche Jima, however, was recently reassigned and the case given to a new judge, Justice Abwaja Tando. The parties, after making their first appearance before Justice Abwaja Tando, informed him of the decision of the Court of Appeal. Lawyers for Opuni, however, served notice of intention to further make an appeal to the Supreme Court. The judge adjourned the case to July 25 for the parties to request for the records of the ruling to pave way for continuation of the trial. In other news, the Tertiary Education Workers Union of Ghana at the University of Development Studies, Tamale campus, has petitioned the Minister of Education to intervene in what they describe as injustice in some public universities. According to the group, management of UDS is acting contrary to rules that govern the institution, such as inviting a non-member of the group to represent it at the University Council's meeting. They are therefore calling on the Minister of Education and the University Council to immediately bring the registrar to order. Here's the local chairman of TEU UDS, Hermas Abba Aklogo, addressing the press.
Council and management should take reasonable steps to activate the process of getting the register to order for the interest of the university community before issues get escalated. This is not the first time the Register of UDS arrogates such authority to himself. He has taken delight in lording over some many things as if he has unlimited and uncontrolled authority. Such incompetent and sinister acts of the register started when the council chairman of UDS, representing the president of the republic by law, and in exercise of that authority, signed the appointment letter of the vice chancellor.
Hermas Abba Akogo is local chairman of Tertiary Education Workers Union of Ghana at the University of Development Studies, Tamale campus. The National Executive Council of the New Patriotic Party will next week decide on the fate of the 10 flag-bearer hopefuls cleared by the party's vetting committee. The Professor Michael Quay-led vetting committee on Monday, July 10, presented its report to the National Council through the General Secretary. The committee recommended that all 10 candidates be allowed to contest the August 26 Special Delegates College elections. Speaking to Citi News, the General Secretary of the NPP, Justin Kuriafrimpong, says the Council at the meeting next week may accept partially or wholly the work of the vetting committee.
Well, once the National Council makes a pronouncement, if it approves more than 5 people or approves all the 10, then it sets the tone for the special delegate college elections that will come on in August. The special delegate college is supposed to trim if the number is more than 5 to 5. And after the special delegate election, then it will set another date, which is November 4th, from the main presidential primaries that will elect our flag bearer. So basically, that is what is going to happen after the special delegate election. Well, they are already doing their campaign, even before they went for the vetting. So the status quo still remains. They can still go ahead with their campaign. And I'm sure the vetting, the National Council will give a positive response to the recommendation by the vetting committee.
You heard the General Secretary of the NPP, Justin Kuriafrimpong.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
Get the details. Every significant financial transaction, every market movement, and all the policies that affect your business. Citi Business News. Be informed.
Time now for Citi Business News on Eyewitness News, powered by citibusinessnews.com. I am Ni Lati. Let's settle for the details now. Economist Professor Godfred Bokpin has suggested that the government urgently take steps to address the country's rising inflationary levels after soaring to record levels in the last quarter of 2022, resulting in a significant rise in the standard of living. Ghanaians heaved a sigh of relief when inflation dropped for 3 consecutive times in February, March, and April 2023. However, inflation for May and June 2023 peaked with inflation for June 2023 seeing a slight rise from 42.2% in May to 42.5%. Reacting to this, Professor Godfred Bokpin expressed worry about the rising food inflation and called for action to reverse the trend. But before we hear from Professor Godfred Bokpin, first listen to government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna-Enim explaining the inflationary figures for June 2023.
Disaggregating the rate of inflation for the month of June 2023 into two broad components, that is locally produced items and imported items, and also from a food and a non-food perspective. Food inflation for the month of June 2023 stood at 54.2% relative to non-food inflation 53.4%. This signifies about a more than 20 percentage point difference between food and non-food inflation for the month of June 2023. We keep on recording a widening of the gap between food and non-food inflation in the last 3 months. On a month-on-month basis, we also record a 1.3 percentage point between food inflation and non-food inflation, with food inflation June 2023 standing at 3.9% and non-food inflation month-on-month 2.6%. We continue to see the dominance of imported items in the consumer price index and rate of inflation.
That's Professor Samuel Kobna-Enim, government statistician. Let's now hear from economist Professor Godfred Bokpin.
The latest figures is a bit concerning because a couple of months ago, we were of the view that the process of disinflation had become entrenched. But what we are seeing with May inflation and then also June inflation really requires some level of attention. What is a bit concerning is the fact that we are practically entering the harvest season. So to see inflation picking up from May and June heading into July, especially if you look at in terms of the drivers, food inflation and the rate of price change in food inflation is a bit concerning. And therefore, the fact that in Ghana, the process of disinflation that is at risk right now should tell us that we need to focus more on addressing structural bottlenecks within our economy, supply chain issues, especially for local food inflation.
That was economist Professor Godfrey Bokpin. Meanwhile, a financial and currency analyst, Courage Buti, has indicated that the auctioning of dollars by the Bank of Ghana will go a long way to help stabilize the economy and help slow inflation. The Bank of Ghana announced plans to sell $120 million to BDCs in the third quarter of 2023. Speaking on the issue, Courage Buti said this will help address the forex liquidity challenges and also stabilize the cedi.
Remember, they started with something in excess of 100 million, and then it came to 75 million, and now we are doing 40 million each month, really. It was meant to be an intervention to support that strategic industry, really, to bring in oil at prices that may not be overly distortionary, really. And these auctions, these BDCs auctions are priced close to what the retail market rates are. So the distortion that IMF complained about at the time is actually not what is happening in this particular auction, really. But then the volume, I must say, is just a fraction of what the BDCs need, really. We know from some official records that the monthly oil import bill is in excess of $400 million, really. So 40 million is a minute fraction of that, really. And that is why, even if we do not have data on the extent to which the gold for oil policy is helping bridge that financing gap, on paper, it sounds like a reasonable initiative at a time where we are struggling with reserves and all of that to try to manage the oil import bill and how we fund it so that we do not expose the ordinary Ghanaian to so much price fluctuations, really.
Courage Buti is a financial and currency analyst. Away from that, and the Ministry of Public Enterprises says it is planning of disposing of 17 defunct state-owned enterprises, including the State Construction Company, the Bonsata Factory, and Bolgatanga Meat Factory, among others. According to the ministry, a review of the companies revealed that the enterprises are liabilities to the country because they have been causing financial losses to the state. The Minister for Public Enterprises, Joseph Kujo, has stated that the ministry intends to list some of these enterprises on the stock market to attract investors to revive them.
When we come to the public sector space, we can envisage it as a portfolio of enterprises. Now, if you take the defunct ones and the active ones, 17 defunct as we count on our records now, we have these defunct entities which government is taking steps to dispose of them because the best government is doing now is just incurring costs to take care of it. But people are vandalizing the assets every day, and it's a disturbing situation so far as the public enterprises portfolio is concerned. This comes through our study of their current situation and then making the projection and realizing that they are just siphoning money from government purse and have become liabilities rather than assets. There are some, upon the review, we intend listing them on the stock market because it is possible to get the investing public, Ghanaians, having equity stakes in them. So it's like a cleanup of the portfolio so that we get those that are active and can be invested in to grow and generate jobs for the good people of Ghana.
Joseph Kujo is the minister responsible for public enterprises. And finally, the Cybersecurity Authority says it will not relent on its efforts in ensuring that activities of unlicensed digital lending apps or loan apps are clamped down. This comes on the back of a swoop by the Joint Cybersecurity Committee comprising the Cybersecurity Authority, the Bank of Ghana, and the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, which led to the arrest of more than 400 suspects, including one Chinese and a Pakistan, engaged in loan app operations in the Greater Accra region. Here is the Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority, Dr. Albert Enchibusiaku, speaking on the arrest.
Additionally, it was discovered that these lending apps have accessed personal data such as messages, contact details, images, and videos from the devices of borrowers, which is then used to blackmail them. Borrowers were also threatened to have their identities published by owners of these lending apps. These actions, ladies and gentlemen, are in infringement of the protected rights of individuals enshrined in the 1992 Constitution and equally violate the data protection principles provided under Section 13 of Ghana's Data Protection Act at age 43. On Monday, July 10, 2023, at 9:30 in the morning, a team comprising personnel from the Economic and Organized Crime Office, led by Mami Yati Weston, the Cybersecurity Authority, led by the Law Enforcement Liaison Unit of the Authority, and Bank of Ghana, together with the Ghana Police Service, conducted a swoop at 3 separate locations in Accra, effecting the arrest of more than 400 persons. 400 persons within a space of few hours.
Dr. Albert Enchibusiaku is the Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority. That's all for City Business News on Eyewitness News. It was powered by your most comprehensive business website, citybusinessnews.com. My name is Nee Lati. Up next is Point Blank.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
You know your papa see that? And it's rickety car. Hey, papa! Bobo, so how your engine now? It is half man, half amazing. Thanks to Cause and you can feel better energy.
Can't touch this.
Tell you guys, so Sancho's engine just died like that? Yes, so somebody managed to convince him that there is a better engine oil than Quartz. And he switched. Sancho Panzapa. Now, which engine oil can be better than Quartz? No other, my guy. Quartz with its age-resistant technology, it keeps your engine younger for longer. Now you know. Have you guys seen the new bottle design? It's superb. Quartz 9000 from Total Energies there improves fuel efficiency. Why do you think Mr. Mane and Logoso have taken the Quartz Nation Movement World Cup like that? Hey, sorry. Chairman Mane. Chairman. Hey, Quartz. Keep your engine younger for longer.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
Tonight on Point Blank, we explore an interesting matter, very important one indeed, which has to do with the matter of child trafficking or suspected cases of child trafficking. As you may well know, Ghana has been in the news many times for cases of child labor and child trafficking. So sometime late last year, the International Justice Mission, an international organization, carried out what they called a rescue mission and rescued some 4 Ghanaian children from the claws of child labor and child trafficking. Not long after, the BBC's Africa Eye conducted its own investigations into the said, rescue mission. Called it Operation Hilltop, and found some worrying, or made some worrying revelations. And they claim that many of these were staged and that many of the kids were not really trafficked. They were kids living with their relatives. Also, we have the two sides tonight, the BBC's Africa Eye and the International Justice Mission. So we'll break down their matters and see where the real issues lie. So I start off by speaking to a friend Nyama, who is a producer with the BBC Africa Eye team, who actually produced this BBC documentary to understand why they undertook this investigation into the work of the IJM and what exactly they found. Hello, good evening, Afren Yama. Welcome to Point Blank.
Good evening, Salam. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's been a while we spoke, and I guess you're doing well at the BBC where you are now.
I'm doing fantastic. Yourself?
Yes, I'm well by God's grace. I read the report you filed after the documentary, and the opening paragraphs of that report actually, they are heart-wrenching. I mean, to say the least. Let me just take a few paragraphs, then you can help us appreciate them properly. You said a little after midnight on the 6th September 2022, Musa Mustafa emerged from his thatched roof hut to relieve himself and saw 4 cars speeding towards his tiny village. Mojina was barely a village with just about a handful of family homes and 24 people in total. It was more like a dot in the middle of an expanse of farmland in northern Ghana. Cars were a rare sight during the day, let alone at night. Musa hid behind a tree and watched. When he saw armed men from the cars approach the 2 homes, he shouted in an attempt to wake the other residents. But before anyone could act, the men entered the hut and forcibly removed 4 children, carrying an 11-year-old girl called Fatima by her arms and legs from the room where she had been sleeping with grandparents. A gun pointed at her neck. Fatima's grandmother, Sana, pleaded with the men. She did not understand why the children were being taken away. 2 of the children's uncles were also taken. Sana feared she would never see her relatives again. In the eyes of the Mojina villagers, a violent kidnapping had taken place, but that was not a kidnapping. So that really is your narration of what the IGM will call a rescue mission. So what actually motivated your investigation into this particular incident or rescue mission?
Sources close to the operations and activities of IGM, specifically in Ghana, drew the attention of the BBC Africa Eye team to situations they described as worrying so far as the operations of IGM is concerned. So we then got to work and did speak to additional sources. And for example, I visited some of these islands under consideration so far as IGM's operations in Ghana is concerned, spoke to affected families, families who said they had been affected by the quote-unquote rescue missions of IGM, and also the some of the children who narrated incidents to us. And this then triggered the next stage of the investigation, which was the undercover operation. And this was not a decision we took lightly. Of course, it was in the public interest, and we needed to corroborate the initial evidence we had gathered. And so if you have seen the documentary, what happened next was for the BBC Africa Eye team to send one of our colleagues to work at the IGM offices in Accra, posing as an intern. This gave us also the opportunity to monitor at first hand the operations of IGM. For example, text message, WhatsApp messages, because our operative had access to an IGM phone. And that is the outcome of the months and weeks of this investigation. Subsequently, my colleague, Chanchahene Boating, who is a reporter in this investigation, also visited some of the communities in Nakpale area, went back to a Chiaman Forum in the Afram Plains area, and so on, to gather additional evidence. So that gives you a clear idea of the amount of work that has gone into this for more than 2 years in total, really. And to talk about the specific cases we identified and we focused on in terms of IGM's operation, what you talked about and referred in that article was Operation Hilltop, which was just last year in September 2022. There was also Operation Freedom, which was in a Chiaman Forum in Afram Plains area. That was in October 2019. We also focused on an IGM operation in April 2017, which was in the Pala Island and surrounding communities. Now, let me break it down and give you the details in terms of the main highlights of our documentary and our findings. In Operation Hilltop, which was in Moina. Moina is a village in the Napale area in the northern region. This was a dawn operation by IGM. So, yeah. And in this operation, 4 kids were removed. And according to the grandmother of 2 of the kids, that's Fatima, who you see in our documentary, when the IGM team entered their hut, barged into their hut at that time of the day, they did not identify themselves. They did not say who they were. They did not talk about their mission there. And according to the grandmother of Fatima, the IGM team pointed a gun at her throat. Fatima was then held by her hands and her legs, and she was taken away together with her sibling. And the 2 other children were also removed and separated from their families. Now, what is interesting, another point we raise in this documentary relative to the Operation Hilltop, is that prior to that operation, and as is evidenced in the documentary, the International Justice Mission office in Accra, Ghana, had written to the Department of Social Welfare indicating that they had found 4 cases of child trafficking. And this was what led to that particular operation. But we identify, and we have evidence presented in the documentary, that prior to that operation, IGM officials knew that 3 of the cases did not fit the child trafficking, criteria. Yet they wrote to the Department of Social Welfare, and based on that information, that operation was carried out. If you listen to the narration of the grandmothers, they say They did not know where the children were. They made attempts and efforts to know where the children had been taken to. In fact, not only that, 2 of the uncles of the children faced prosecution. Eventually, that prosecution was discontinued by the prosecutors for suggesting lack of evidence. But they say that they spent about 1,500 cedis each time they had to come to Accra for the court hearings. In regard to the this same operation again, Selom, the residents of Moina tell the BBC Africa Eye team, and in the conversation with my colleague Chensha Heneboatin, that the chief of the village died out of shock after the kids were taken away. In fact, they say that the IGM team barged into his heart in a very disrespectful manner as well. Now let's look at
yes, I wish I had a lot of time, but I think your narration on Operation Hilltop provides us enough further to progress our discussion. So maybe I would just want to thank you. We'll get back to you a bit later if we need to. But I think your information on the Operation Hilltop gives us enough basis to engage the IGM on the matters. So Alfred, thanks so much for speaking to us, and thanks so much for the job you do at BBC Africa Eye. Thank you so much. We'll speak again some other time. All right. Yes. So that is the BBC Africa Eye's producer, Ghana's own Alfred Nyama, speaking to us on what they found in their investigation. In the studio also with me is Anita Budu, who is country director of the International Justice Mission, to help us also appreciate really matters from their point of view. Hello, welcome to Point Blank.
Good evening, Salom, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak into this issue this evening.
Very well, it's a pleasure. So we saw this report, and we were, some were happy that indeed children were being rescued from the claws of child trafficking, etc. Only to see another side of the activities you carried out, that indeed some of these children were not even trafficked after all. They were not even in child labor. They were happily living with their relatives. How did you receive the BBC Africa Eye report?
We received the BBC Africa Eye report and looked at it in detail. And looking at it, we didn't just review, of course, many of the revelations in there are quite shocking. To us, what we did when we received the initial report was to do an internal inquiry and investigation into the case. And what we find from our side is that there are a lot of inaccuracies and misportrayals of IGM's work within this documentary. If I was to back up a bit, there was a lot of references to IGM operation, IGM rescue, IGM did that. That is the first thing I would point out as an inaccuracy. In Ghana, IGM is an NGO, and there is our mandate, an NGO's mandate is restricted. There is set by law what we can and cannot do. IGM's mandate in Ghana is to provide support to public justice systems to be able to be strengthened and provide justice solutions and support to every vulnerable child in Ghana. And so whether it's the most remote village in the country or whether it's in Accra, I believe that every child should have that access to support services. Every child should not be subject to abuse and exploitation. Now, when we come to the issue of trafficking on the lake, it is not a simple issue. It is not a clear-cut issue. And so, again, something that I have heard is that it's a cultural thing. We, as children learn the trade of their parents. And yes, that is true. Many of us as children worked and helped and supported our parents. Many children before school may go to their farm, after school would help their parents. These are not the cases we are talking about. We are talking about a spectrum from where within child labor and hazardous labor, a child's health is being compromised, their development is being compromised, their morals are being compromised. And on the other spectrum, when you go far down to trafficking, these are the most vulnerable group because they have been taken from one place to another for the specific purpose of exploitation. And I have directly heard stories from these children. They are told that your role, your job in life is to work for me. And so quite often these fishermen also have their own children who they do take care of. These trafficked children are treated, to me, not like human beings and not like children. And so the most heartbreaking story I have seen and heard is a child where upon rescue was given food on a table and all the other children were eating. And I saw him go to the bin and pick up food. And so I
left
asked,
the food on the table.
He did not touch it. He did
went
not
to pick
even
from the
look.
bin,
He
rather.
went to pick from the bin. The leftover, the bones that others had eaten, and it was in the bin.
But that should be an isolated case. And because one of the cases in point, the case of Fatima appeared quite very happy with where she was living, with the grandmother, grandfather, etc.
Yes.
Before she was taken in the manner that the Africa Eye described.
Yes.
Two things. This was a person quite happy with life generally, before she was taken away in that manner. And is that the way you encourage, the rescue mission or the rescue to take place? I mean, storming the place, gunpoint, whisking the people away, no explanation to the people, the relatives, etc. Is that a practice?
Not at all. That is not the practice. Before IJM embarks on any intervention or provides information to the government authorities, there are weeks and weeks of gathering information. So many a time it's someone who alerts or a member of the community who says, I've seen this, I'm concerned about it. And so there are weeks of investigation and going into detail and lots of back and forth. Back and forth does happen within the team because you don't just take one person's word from it. We have professionals from different expertise or different fields to discuss these cases and see the merits. From the program, you would see that there was, within this particular Hilltop case, there was one that there was clear evidence pointing to a case of trafficking. The other three, it was not so clear. It was and this is where I say that you have trafficking, you have exploitation, you have hazardous labor, and sometimes with the information that you have, it's very difficult to determine that. We sent that information to the police and it was outlined. The facts of the case were outlined. The
information is you were aware that these three were not actually trafficked. But I mean, the claim is that you painted a picture as if they were trafficked children, or they were persons they were persons who were within the kind of people you were targeting or you wanted. So even in spite of information pointing to the fact that no, these guys did not fit the bill, you still went ahead and then suggested same to the authorities, and then they went to do what they did.
In the initial information that was gathered, it was not clear. It was not clear-cut. And so when presented to the authorities, a decision was made to intervene. Normally when there's an intervention, in many cases, in other crimes, there's an intervention and there are interviews, there are assessments done, and then a decision made in terms of proceeding.
But subsequently,
and so it was a complex case. There was a need for assessment, and so that intervention was done. And when the intervention was done and the interviews were done, both the police, government agencies, police and DSW, determined that at that point there was a need for the children to be out of that situation, and the charges were brought to the suspects. Again, IJM can't come and say this is what should be done. Our role is to provide support and equip and guidance. So provide.
So will IJM know the mode or how they rescue or they get these kids? The case of Mojina still.
Yes.
I mean, when I read it, I was very, very concerning.
Yes.
So does IGM know how these raids, I mean, for lack of a better word, are carried out? Because if indeed how they described it was how it really happened, is this something the IGM will be worried about?
When we completed our inquiries, the description of the team on the ground is not the description that we are getting from the narration or from the documentary.
You spoke to the grandmother of the girl and the uncles and all those people who are around who purportedly saw what happened. Did you speak to them in your interviews later?
We did not speak to those community members. We spoke to members of staff who had been on the ground.
So that dawn where the raid occurred, I mean, your staff were part of the police people who went there. Is that the case?
Our staff were supporting the police, and the actual intervention, the police made the intervention. However, we did not observe when a police has to intervene in a situation, they assess and they determine how many people need to be in. Normally, in doing a trauma-informed approach, any officer who will be dealing with a child will not be in uniform to give a more trauma-informed approach so that the child is not distressed. The police will determine how to go in. Sometimes, and from our observation, the police use a measured approach. Our observation in this particular case was that there was explanation as to what was going on, and there was a measured approach. We did not observe this situation of the gun. We did not observe that.
But I find it quite concerning that after this documentary had come out and you wanted to ascertain what the truth was, you did not see it necessary to talk to the grandmother who Africa Eye had spoken to. I would expect that you would have spoken to her. You hear her side of the story, try to locate, well, it's a small community of about just a dozen people, locate the people that Africa Eye claimed they spoke to see if the stories will be different. And maybe that could inform how you proceed next time. You know, and yes, I was wondering why you did not do that.
Well, at this point, I wouldn't deem it as appropriate to go in that situation to go and speak to that grandmother. Someone has made their account. I, as an entity, can't go and if I'm going to ask, it's in a sense saying, are you telling the truth? I think that as we are supporting, it would make sense for a more independent entity to ask that question rather than IJM go and say, we heard this is this thing. What is your... I don't think it's the most ethical thing for us to now go to the grandmother again and ask those questions. To that also, I would say that whilst we have not found wrongdoing from our team or from IGM Ghana in this particular case, we are an organization that prioritizes the well-being and protection of every child and safeguarding of every child. And this is what motivates us in the work that we do. This is what drives us to protection of our children in Ghana. And so as we move, every operation we support, every operation we work in, there is always a review, what we call an after-action review. We learn from that and we implement, and we always look to grow. And so from this that has come out, we always look to review our policies, our safeguarding policies, and look to improve and grow as we go. We are a learning organization. IGM Ghana started in 2015. I started with the team as 2015. You see me as country director now. I actually started as a social worker with the aftercare team. And so it's very close to my heart because the reason I joined this team is because I have a passion for children. I'm a social worker. I have a passion for children and the children of Ghana. And so it is my life mission to ensure that there are structures in place to protect every child. Things are not simple. Things are not straightforward. They are very complicated. But through it all, we work to improve and get better, and also work with other organizations, other NGOs, other entities, other government bodies to together look to see what we can do to keep moving forward. And number one, outline and ensure that the whole of Ghana knows that this is a real problem. It is not something that is exaggerated. There have been many studies. I really had wished, my biggest wish in all of this is that there had been discussions with survivors, children who've been in these situations for 2, 5, 10 years, for them to say their story.
There surely are difficult situations. There surely are children in these situations. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I think that the concern is sometimes these stories are exaggerated for whatever reason, and they don't paint us in the correct light. If the cases are the way they are stated, no problem. But to stage, to use the word of, I mean, to borrow from what the Africa Eye says, to stage it for whatever purpose, that is what I think, that's where the concern is.
Yeah, so from my perspective...
So, for example, in the manner in which the Africa Eye claims they stormed the village. I don't know what other approaches are available. Given there's a small village, I don't know what resistance they anticipated. Couldn't the police or the DSW, couldn't they have invited a family to the police station or to the office somewhere to tell them and take the child away from that situation?
That, again, like I said, depending on the community, depending on the situation, depending on the intelligence and information that is received, there are different means that are used. There have been situations, there have been cases
at night or at dawn. That will also be traumatizing to the child you're hoping to save.
To the question that I was responding, there have been situations where it's been assessed and somebody has said, bring the child to a DSW office, and that intervention has been done and there was no issue that was done. To the concern about it being done at dawn, again, various dynamics and various variables need to be looked at when an intervention is being done, and the well-being of the child is also looked at within that. And so again, a lot has to be balanced. Well-being of the child, if we're looking at a situation where someone is at significant risk of harm or there is harm being done, making an intervention at dawn where you're likely to be able to take that child out of that situation, or going, let me say, in the afternoon when they've already left to go fishing and they are not there, or you go into a different dynamic and it's not, you're less likely to find the person. All these things have to be considered. And so the aim, I would have to really, really emphasize, is not to stage anything.
So what learnings have we made from this particular instance or situation? Africa Eye coming to say, I mean, from their investigation, that this is what they found, contrary to what you put out there. I mean, just one or two learnings from this and how that will influence, our future operations.
I think number one, and one of the learnings that I am taking on board, or the organization is taking on board, is coming with our government agencies and our government partners and looking really at process and procedure and what can be done to further improve what is already in place, to ensure that children are protected in the long term, in the bigger picture, but then also through the direct interventions, these nuances and unique situations are looked at. This is a unique situation, but we always look to improve. The other thing that has been highlighted that I just want to say is that what we are driven by is the protection of children and not targets or any other things like that. However, if there is even one person in the team that feels that that is the case, this is something that we'll be going through in terms of trainings and internal capacity buildings to ensure that that is not the case.
Very well. Thank you so much, Anita Budu. Wish you had more time to talk, but I think
really do wish also.
We'll talk. We'll be talking more as the days go by. Thank you so much. So we've been speaking to Anita Budu, who is country director for the International Justice Mission, which is an NGO devoted to helping children and rescuing children in child labor and who have been trafficked. Their recent work has come under some challenge by the BBC Africa Eye, and we've just been talking about that. Earlier you heard our friend Miyama, a producer with the BBC Africa Eye team. So this is how we conclude today's edition of the program. We've been live from our studios here at number 11, Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra. Show's been produced by Nana Kobna Wilson, Sami Wiafe, Bevlin London. Earlier you heard Eno Safo. Technical assistance given by Daniel Squashi. My name is Salom Adun. Have a good night.